Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. This week, I am sharing some thoughts that have recently come to light about sharing NFP in our culture right now, especially with our younger generations. And by younger, I mean basically people under 35-ish, or like speaking generationally, millennials and Gen Zers. So there's kind of an interesting conundrum surrounding this that I recently realized. Those of us in the NFP space seem to spend a lot of time trying to explain how NFP is not the rhythm method, calendar method, standard days method, whatever you want to call it. And we do this because we assume that the people around us, the people going through marriage prep, the teens in youth ministry, or just kind of basically the teens we're presenting to, have heard all of these things about NFP not working and being unreliable. But is that really what people going through marriage prep right now and teens in high school are thinking? So over the past few months, as I've been speaking with people, giving presentations at marriage prep and giving talks to parishes, I have actually come across far more people who have never heard anything about NFP than people who have heard bad things about it. So before I jump into that, let's talk about why that is. So people going through marriage prep right now are, for the most part, millennials or the older members of Generation Z. The people in these generations, of which I am one, grew up in an entirely post-Christendom society. And one of the major things about a post-Christendom society is that basic Christian education didn't exist for the most part outside of the walls of the church. Society and homes didn't have a big Christian influence. So that's to say that certain church teachings, unless talked about in faith formation classes or talked about in the home, ceased to be common knowledge. So it's the parents of these generations who, for the most part, have negative ideas of NFP because either they used it and didn't work, or their parents used it and had more children than they wanted, and they made that clear to the kids. I've talked to plenty of people in that category. And what I mean by it is the calendar rhythm method. So these people, the parents of the people going through marriage prep and high school right now, they didn't pass on the teaching of natural family planning and God's true plan for marriage and sexuality because of really two main reasons. First, they were not properly taught the teachings in the first place. And second, they thought that, quote, the Catholic version of birth control doesn't work. Now, of course, we've talked about how NFP is not Catholic birth control plenty on this podcast, so I'm not going to get into that here. Just go back to the episode with that title if you want to dive deeper into that. But going back to our people in marriage prep and high school right now, we have a couple of things happening. First, for the most part, NFP wasn't practiced in their parents' marriages. And it wasn't ever something that was talked about parent to child. Because NFP was never talked about, neither negative nor positive opinions of NFP were passed on. Also, and I think everybody can know or knows this already, our post-Christendom society has accepted the pill as the standard of healthcare for women. And it's just expected that a woman will go on the pill if she wants to plan when to have kids. So going back to that marriage prep talk or presentation in high school youth group, we actually have a really exciting opportunity here. We don't need to spend time backpedaling and making up for decades of misinformation about NFP. Because for the most part, when you walk into a youth group or a marriage prep class and ask for a show of hands of who has heard of NFP, it's going to be one or two. We have the awesome opportunity to introduce incredible and literally life-changing information about our bodies, which allow us to have stronger sexual relationships in our marriage because we actually understand how our bodies and God work together to create life. Okay, so why does this make such a big difference? This little piece about knowing about NFP or not? Well, for the most part, and again, I'm speaking in generalities here, the way that I've seen NFP talks to be structured, they focus on building credibility as if the credibility has already been lost. But it's not. We are actually introducing a brand new idea and brand new knowledge to these people. We don't need to put much, if any, emphasis on what NFP is not. We can just move straight forward with what NFP is and how it can truly be a gift to you and your marriage. NFP and fertility awareness are the literal answer that people are looking for. I personally am case in point of this. Before marriage prep, I knew that the church was against birth control, but I didn't know what it was for instead. The knowledge that birth control is against church teaching is pretty prevalent still, but very few actually know what the church's answer to the need for family planning is. And they actually think the church doesn't have an answer and you're just supposed to have like 10 million kids. Also, very few actually know why the church is against birth control in the first place. And those 2 points, that's where we need to start. And of course, I am speaking in generalities. I know that there are awesome programs out there doing really great work. And if you are one of those programs, please reach out to me. I would love to learn about what you're doing in this space because I'm still learning every day. And also, I'm speaking from my own experience. My experience in the Bay Area of California working with marriage prep couples and teens in 2020 and 2021. Hey, if it's completely different in your area, tell me about it. Let's talk more about where the current generations getting married stand on knowledge of NFP. But really, here's my main point for this episode. If you are someone who is promoting or someone who's looking to promote NFP in any way, and I hope that's every single one of you listening, because you don't have to be a Catholic speaker to promote NFP. You don't have to be an instructor to promote NFP. You can promote NFP by just talking about it with your friend. So if you're promoting or looking to promote NFP in any way, if you're anybody listening to this podcast, make sure to take a census of the person or the people you're promoting to. Don't just assume that they think you're crazy for spouting off about something that, quote, doesn't even work. Maybe they've never heard of what you have to share. And very likely, as soon as you get into it, they're going to want to hear more. Every single person I have introduced to fertility awareness and natural family planning has said something to the effect of, why isn't this more well known? Why didn't I know about this sooner? Let me repeat. Every single person, Christian, Catholic, no religion, everyone. Those of us who know about NFP and fertility awareness, aka you listening to this podcast, we have a duty to share this. If every person I have talked to has been interested and felt like this should be information that is more well known, then you are likely going to have similar experiences. So put yourself out there and help us expand this NFP conversation. Thank you so much for being here. This was a much shorter episode than normal. I don't think there's all that much more to share on this topic, but I do think it was important enough to warrant its own episode. I would love to hear your thoughts or your experiences. Please reach out to me on Instagram or email. Charting Toward Intimacy, and links to those are in the show notes. Until next time.